So I don't think acquisitions are going to be a thing for Sony. Maybe they're going to get a couple of more studios under their wing, but no more than that.
Hello everybody and welcome to the WCCF Tech Podcast. We are joined by the gruesome twosome, the Italian stallions, the never washes his shirt Francesco.
Hello. I have more than one of these.
Yeah, a likely excuse. That's one I use.
Yeah.
And we have
follow their advice.
and we have Alessio, who's been stuck in this pose for about 7 years.
I am practicing, but hi
for your modeling career. Right, so we've got a few topics up for today. One which could take a long time, could not take a long time. I don't know, but we've got backup ones in case. But we'll get right into it, and then we'll talk about the other ones after if we can get to them. The simple one is, after last week where we just talked about Microsoft and, 68.9, however many billion, 68.7 billion, I don't know, just short of 70 billion on Activision Blizzard when it goes through in 2023. Simple question is, what can Sony do to respond? I know I've got a few ideas, but I'll leave it over to you two for now first, and then I'll jump in.
Well, the first thing they can do is hope the deal doesn't go through. I think that's the best thing they can wish for now. Because, Sony has a lot of money, but obviously not as much as Microsoft. So they really can't buy, and besides, they really can't buy anything as big as Activision Blizzard. I mean that it has such an appeal, worldwide appeal. They could buy some Japanese publishers, but like Square Enix, but I don't think they have the same appeal as the Call of Duty studio. So I don't think acquisitions are going to be a thing for Sony. Maybe they're going to get a couple of more studios under their wing, but no more than that. I think the only way they can respond to Microsoft in some way is with the rumored Spartacus service. We don't know how they're going to do that. Maybe one thing that really could, make the headlines is full backwards compatibility with all PlayStation titles for free. They're never going to do this, but there will be. I think there will be the kind of announcement that would be, not as big as Microsoft purchasing Activision Blizzard, but big enough to say they haven't been sleeping. They haven't just been waiting for things to happen. Other than that, I really don't know how they could respond, because they don't, as I said, they don't have the money Microsoft does, so they can't do anything so crazy as purchasing big publishers left and right.
So just on that, when it comes to the money that Sony have, last I remember it was probably about a year and a half ago, Sony's literally cash on hand, the cash they had in the bank account, was about just short of $45 billion. So it's not like, same as Microsoft. Microsoft have got more, obviously, but same as the Xbox departments just dipping into the other departments. PlayStation, it is Sony's biggest department in reality, so if they wanted to, there's no reason why Sony couldn't dip into that cash balance. And never mind that, if they wanted to buy somebody, they could still offer shares as instead of just all cash. So when it comes to money, there are still good options for Sony.
Yeah, but not as big. I think not as big as meaning regarding reach. Because can buy, they could buy Square Enix. They could have Final Fantasy exclusive to PlayStation, which they pretty much already have.
Yeah, that's the point.
It's not like Call of Duty being exclusive. It's just not the same appeal.
I think my point is Square Enix, they already pretty much have it exclusive. So how much they are really going to gain?
Well, I wonder about the cost effectiveness of that, because Sony are obviously one-off deals for each of the games. Maybe it's more cost effective just to simply buy them. And also, you
Uh,
could
You know,
eventually.
it's Final Fantasy. I think it's only the mainline titles that sell enough. And Square Enix puts out a lot of spin-offs. Like we have Stranger of Paradise coming out
Yeah.
next month. I don't think that's going to be could be a system seller. In fact, they're releasing it on everything. On everything. So yeah,
yeah,
I think it makes more sense for Final Fantasy to be deal per deal instead of an exclusivity
Yeah,
deal that gets everything.
I
So yeah,
understand
it's
that.
probably not that.
I also wonder about games like, Square have also got your franchises like Dragon Quest. You've got Tomb Raider. You've got things like that. So there is a potential. I mean, I've always said that when it came to if Sony were going to buy somebody, Square Enix would be probably the most likely option because of the history with Final Fantasy, and simply because, well, Microsoft still aren't there when it comes to JRPGs and things like that. And if Sony corner that market, they're still cornering 50 plus million people around the world. When it comes to people who buy Final Fantasy, people who buy Dragon Quest, and then they've still got the fun of, you've got your Tomb Raiders, you've got your Deus Ex and such as that. So
yeah.
it's a weird one. Square Enix is a potential. I mean, we had a discussion in chat, and the only Japanese publisher that I would never see Sony buying is Sega because they're too heavily invested in the PC market.
But I don't know. It could actually make sense for them to, buy them to get a foothold in the PC market because now you're thinking, yeah, they have JRPGs, so they should get more JRPGs. I don't think so. I think that with these acquisitions, publisher are clearly looking to fill in the gaps of what they don't already have. And to
I'd
that
understand
regard,
that from our business sort of point of view, but being a Japanese company, they just seem to work weird at times. And they always have
I
Sony.
mean,
They've always worked a little strange. Not as strange as Nintendo, but still.
true, but Sony isn't. I mean, it's still a Japanese company, but we know nowadays it's also very much. It's much more Western oriented than pretty much any other Japanese company. So there are many, key executives who are not Japanese, for
Oh yeah,
example.
yeah.
It's so I'm not sure it applies the same. I think I don't know. I think that they should definitely do something, but yeah, as you said before, Francesco said before, they just cannot. For example, there are some people on Reddit or Resetera forums wondering if they could buy EA. They cannot. EA is almost has almost $40 billion of market value. That's not really something that Sony could afford easily, and neither they could. Yeah, neither they could buy Ubisoft. So, yeah, that leaves mostly stuff like Sega, Square Enix, I don't know, Capcom. But yeah, if I was Sony, I'd rather buy Sega and keep doing deals with Square Enix, honestly. Uh, like the ones they've already been doing for a long time for Final Fantasy, etc. But yeah, they don't really have a lot of cards available. So it will be interesting to see. They could also just keep acquiring smaller developers like they've been doing,
Yeah.
and but yeah, as Francesco said, it will be critical to see how they can really try to compete with Game Pass, if they can do that, if they can even do that.
I just can't.
Uh,
Now they called it Codename Spartacus. I've been rewatching the Spartacus TV series, and all I've got now is that in my head.
okay.
It's like I just why not call it something other than Spartacus? I don't even understand the codename really. Is like
Yeah.
is Microsoft Rome, and then Sony are the plucky slave, the servile ribbon. Is this the servile war where Microsoft eventually kills them? Because that's not a good name. That's not a good omen.
yeah. It doesn't bring very much good luck.
Yeah. To be honest, I think beyond just considering what Sony could do as a counter move, I think it's also interesting to ponder what is Microsoft going to do next, because I know this is big, but I don't really think they are done. Phil Spencer also said over and over that they'd like to purchase some Asian developers, for example, and
Yeah.
they still haven't done that, and I think they will in the next few years, because that's an area they are definitely lacking, for example. So, for instance, if they could buy Sega, then that would be a great get, honestly, because it's
It's a
just
weird one. It's just so you look at Microsoft's cash on hand. Again, I'm just thinking about 2 years ago, like when Sony had 45 billion, Microsoft had about 135, 140 billion. Now you think about how much they've spent, what, 7 billion on, was it 7 billion on ZeniMax? And now, 70. So they've spent over, well, they've spent over half of the cash that they had now, or at least it's been allocated ring fence to spend. So obviously Microsoft could take loans if they needed to. They could offer shares. That they're never going to struggle to buy somebody. But I think just with the sheer scale of these acquisitions, I don't think they'll be doing anything. I don't think they'll go on any big spree, or they'll buy somebody as big now. But I could see them buying smaller Asian developers, ones that you. To be fair, I can't even think of any now. Was it Mistwalker who?
Yeah.
I say they. I
Yeah.
don't. I think
Yeah.
they're still standalone, so they could get them.
Yeah,
Level.
but they're really
yeah,
scaled back down now. They just
yeah,
make mobile games now.
Yeah, but if
the,
I think if Microsoft decided to buy the studio, they could get them cheap and then just invest 50 million in them. That's that scales them back up.
Yeah, well, you could also say the creator of Final Fantasy, because Sakaguchi is still there. So
Exactly, and
yeah,
that's one of the other
it makes
things.
sense.
That's one of the other things. So studios like Mistwalker Level 5, that's another option. The smaller Japanese or Asian studios which wouldn't cost as much, I think Microsoft may look towards. I don't know if they'd go. I don't think they'd buy Sega. It's a likely option if they hadn't have just spent nearly $80 billion, but
I mean, it's less than $4 billion, so of
when you go
market
for the
cap.
markup, you're probably looking about 5 billion, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not.
Oh yeah,
It's not really something that would make Microsoft uncomfortable in terms of
no.
Yeah,
I know.
It's
small
also
change for them.
it's also big, because you'd get Yakuza, you'd get Persona, you'd get all the PC games. So it would really, I think, complement their Game Pass offering fully. And after that, they could really just lay back and consolidate.
Well, I mean, they've already made deals with Sega. They have got a partnership with Sega, which is probably one of the reasons I don't think they're going to buy, because they've invested in this partnership. So you've got Total War coming to Game Pass.
Yeah,
You've got things like this. So I get the feeling that Microsoft have probably thought about Sega and then just decided we'll just flag into the we'll just pop in for the games side of things, because the other issue with Sega is how much they've got invested when it comes to your amusement arcades. You've still got the arcade side of the business. There's a lot
They
more
could
to.
Well,
sell
no,
the
well, the arcade business is no more, because Sega announced a couple days ago that they're out.
Ah.
So they are that's out. But by the way, I was, what you say makes sense. But I was thinking if they're looking to make the headlines again, having Persona exclusive to Xbox, that would melt the internet.
Yeah,
And it would be a big blow to Sony.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're, if you go into the topics where people are like, is this going to change? Yeah, I mean, referring to the Activision Blizzard deal, your platform of choice, and many are still saying no because I'm not getting JRPGs, for example. So Microsoft definitely needs to do something, to that end, and of course Sega would be the biggest thing, but there are other options. I mean, how much would Bandai Namco cost? I don't know, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just quickly reading then about the arcades. It's a diversion, but Sega is still going to be making arcade games and machines. It's just that the holdings, the actual amusement centers, they're not going to be doing.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't. It's just like Bandai Namco, another interesting one. They've got the Tales series.
They have From Software. They have Dark Souls. They have Elden Ring.
Where
that would be
again. That's a bit. That's not necessarily. They've got that deal for publishing those games, but obviously From Software are still. Could Microsoft just buy From Software?
Yeah.
Anyway, could Microsoft just buy every fucker in the games industry? Let's be honest.
Well, they could. They have the money. They could do that. Everything exclusive to the I was thinking the good thing if Microsoft were to buy Sega, it would be that finally Persona will come to PC, the main games that people have been asking for, and
people,
nothing.
Microsoft will be like, Persona 5 on PC day one, 4K DLSS, and PC gamers.
Yeah.
I think you'll probably find Persona starts coming to PC. Core games will come to the PC soon enough. I think the future ones, anyway.
It's taking ages. I mean, this is.
Yeah.
So, Microsoft could definitely, make it quick. Probably. But yeah, it's interesting. I think there will be lots of moves on both sides, possibly, and of course there are also Tencent still doing their investments and acquisitions, and kind of the indie of this group is Embracer Group, which is still buying a ton of developers each quarter. So yeah, definitely another huge year for mergers and acquisitions in the industry.
Yeah. Who's next? Who's next on the chopping block? Oh, dear God. Yeah. What can Sony do? They've got a few options, like you say. They could buy somebody. Again, who? Bandai Namco. I think the one thing we haven't touched on, which would be interesting, is will Nintendo do anything?
Because they don't need to.
I know they're a weird one in the fact that they don't need to. They still sort of just sit alone, and they always have done in the industry. But as Microsoft keeps expanding and eventually sucks up nearly, most stuff, Nintendo must be looking over the shoulder every now and then going, oh shit, that's getting a bit big now.
I don't know. I feel like they have a better relationship with Microsoft than Sony. Because like they got Cuphead on the Switch before it got to PlayStation, I think.
Yeah.
They had cross-platform play between Nintendo consoles and Xbox on Minecraft. So I don't know. Nintendo's just they just operate on a different level. They just do their thing, and as long as it works, I don't think they're going to change their ways.
Yeah, now this is definitely one company that fits the strange Japanese company, stereotype. So
yeah, well, God knows. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that's the big topic sorted with. Not bad. We've just done it in about 20 minutes. So go on, Alessio. Pick us another topic, one of the smaller ones you wanted to talk about.
Well, there have been quite a few announcements this week,
Pick
game
one
announcements.
first.
And I guess let's start with Star Wars, because as we already knew, of course, EA and Respawn have confirmed the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. We don't know yet any details, but rumors have it that it may even launch this year, late this year, that is. So hopefully, fingers crossed. And I really enjoyed the first game. Francesco here reviewed it, so
Yeah, very good. Well, not very good, but it's a good enough game. But they kind of have to step it up for the next part. They can continue picking things from other games and making a nice package, but they need to go a
yeah,
little
they
above that this time, which they probably
probably
will. I mean,
probably do a bit more innovations this time. Yeah, but yeah, the bigger news were the other two Star Wars game announcements. So one is a strategy game, which Respawn is kind of co-developing with a new studio that was formed by XCOM developers. So people are speculating it could be an XCOM-like game set in Star Wars, and that could be interesting for sure. And also the other game is a first-person shooter, which is being made by the developers behind Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, the game that you reviewed for VR, Chris.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
interestingly, the game producer is actually one of the producers of the original Star Wars Battlefront games. So this will not be officially a Battlefront games, but Battlefront fans are kind of hoping that it will be kind of a spiritual successor, maybe.
Other
Or
than the modern ones.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's interesting and something to look forward to. Even though these two games, other than Jedi Fallen Order 2, they are still early in development, so it will take some time to learn more. And but there's a ton of Star Wars games in development. There is Star Wars Eclipse from Quantic Dream. There is the open world game that Ubisoft Massive is doing. There is also, of course, Lego Star Wars, which is finally coming out this spring. Hopefully, hopefully no more delays. Just a ton of interesting stuff for Star Wars fans, I think. Of course, the Knights of the Old Republic remake. That's still something that we'll have to see how it ends up, because it's from a kind of new developer, or at least,
I suppose with it being then again, I was just going to say being a remake, they can't mess it up, but well, Rockstar managed to mess up GT.
they can.
Then again, yeah. Okay.
So there is a lot of Star Wars stuff coming up.
It's an interesting thing, but it was always weird when Disney decided to buy Lucas, essentially just buy Lucas. Obviously, you could always have some concerns about where they were going to go because Disney have, they're not always been the biggest when it comes to games, but they just seem to be. Essentially, now it's a case of farming out whatever IPs they've got to make whatever deals they can. Because Star Wars seems to, well, at the moment, it seems every single developer in the world's got a Star Wars license.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Star Wars Connect 4 by one of the mobile developers.
Well, there is
That's
Star
not
Wars
an idea.
Suncast.
No mobile developers. We don't need any of that. Bad.
Okay.
Yeah, it is interesting to see. Yeah, I'm looking forward to some of them. You know, EA actually allowed us first, a single player game to be published with a big IP, Star Wars, and it was good. Who knew that? Who knew that if you let a developer do what they're good at, they make good games? Think about this in the future. Don't destroy the good ones and stop making them make shit. When's Dead Space remake coming out? I want to play that.
Yeah, there is that too. So, and also something that once was published by EA, but no more.
Another one they killed.
No, it's just a new Crisis. Crisis 4.
Yeah, I'm saying though, EA had really had a hand in killing Crytek.
And so we don't really know anything about it, but it's coming, and I mean, we kind of guessed it when they made the remastered trilogy, of course, but it will be interesting to see whether they go with the full open world or not. I don't know.
I think that would be a bad idea, but that's just me. Stick to what they're good at. Though I've got to be honest, I'm not really a big Crysis fan, and I don't think the games they're good. They're decent, but I never thought they were something extra special. They're as they were more used as essentially just a way to test your PC rather than actually play a game.
Yeah, no offense to the developers, but I feel like Crysis popularity is just because of the meme, can it run Crysis?
Yeah.
I don't know, it looks... I never played those, so I really can't say, but I don't really like first-person games. First-person shooters. It kind of looks generic from the outside. But it's probably not, but that's the feel I get when I see footage of the games.
I think the first game was actually pretty good, and also it had a lot of freedom in how you approached combat. So you could really... It had pretty advanced AI as well, so it made for interesting fights between the nanosuit powers and whatnot. So it was also pretty fun to play. So yeah, it's with Ant Showdown they have found success again with different gameplay scenario formula as well. So we'll see if they learn something from that and maybe use it again with Crysis. Although it's very different, of course, but it feels like they have a solid foundation again with Ant, and now they can also go back to their most prized IP. So fingers crossed.
Chances are, actually, just to stick to the whole idea of it, they probably are going to make something fancy tech-wise that goes with Crysis, where everybody's PCs are going to burn into just a hulk of metal. I'm gonna you're gonna next time you see me after Crysis 4 gets released, it'll just be I'll be on my phone or something. Like, I can't play games anymore. Oh no.
Don't you have phones? Which brings us to the other news.
Yeah, Francesco sort of hit it when he mentioned first person. You're not really a fan of first person games, but the next one by Blizzard is first person, or rumored.
Yeah.
Though they're a bit late to the party, aren't they? It's a survival game, and didn't the survival game trend start about 5 decades ago?
Yeah.
This is just Blizzard, though. They're very slow in everything.
You know what's funny is that just last week we talked about maybe Blizzard trying to do something different outside what they've been doing so far with Microsoft, and they actually announced this, and I don't think this was... I think this was already in the pipeline before the...
4.5 years, apparently.
The acquisition.
Yeah, so, it's been in the works for a long time, apparently. And
Well, 4.5 years when it was first sort of pitched. So then, yeah, so chances are it's been in development maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Knowing the Blizzard knowing Activision Blizzard, they get a pitch. Oh, well, this is a popular trend. Yeah, Activision, let's work on it right now. Blizzard, ooh, we've got a bit of World of Warcraft to do, and then we've got to fuck up Warcraft 3, and then we've got to get somebody to remake Diablo, which, to be fair, good. They're
no,
very
but
slow.
Yeah.
it's true, they are. But then again, I think, it's true that survival games have been popular for quite some time, but they haven't really gone entirely out of fashion yet.
No, true.
Just if you think about Valheim, for example. And also, it's interesting because I think there may be a parallel with MMOs, because with World of Warcraft, they came in and did MMOs in a way that was a lot more polished, a lot more accessible, and they made big success. And I think they, or potentially, theoretically, they could do the same with survival, because
It's
out of all the survival games that have been successful, there hasn't really been a AAA one which is also polished. It's still all indie games and AA games at best. None of them are really AAA and fully polished as
how
Blizzard
dare
games,
you?
at least.
Metal Gear Survive was AAA. Yeah, I take your point on that. It just depends. I suppose I don't know what Blizzard can bring to the table, which is for me the survival game thing. It's the actual. The mechanics are all the same eventually, so one game, a different skin doesn't really help. I mean, Valheim is really good, and that I suppose that's partly because of it takes a bit of a storied approach to it. You've got the different bosses to face, and the building mechanics are just genuinely quite fun. It would be interesting to see how Blizzard do this differently. But I don't. How can I say this without being horrible? I don't trust them to. The track record as of late, they're not the same Blizzard that made World of Warcraft, so it's impossible to really say that. And I look at them similar to the way I look at Valve at the moment. That Valve's last game was a failure. But everybody thought, oh, it's Valve making a game, so it's going to be a smash hit. Alas, that isn't always the case, and the same could be said for Blizzard now. It would be interesting to see how they do something with this. I don't know. It's just weird. I'm just cautious when it comes to even.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, of course. And yeah, it's true that they've hit a rough patch, to say the least. But at the same time, if you've seen the website, I've also linked in the article several actually tweets and public mentions from both current developers and even former developers and even former Blizzard employees who never actually worked on the game, but they just heard about it internally, and they they have said that what they heard was really good, and they're looking forward to it. So it seems like there is a strong, vibrant vibe around this game of excitement, at least among those that know about it.
I suppose the worry is that I'm just being the downer here now, but it might just become another StarCraft ghost.
I
Well,
don't
maybe
know.
not. Maybe not. Maybe not this time.
Well, that was
We'll see.
well received internally, and there was always things, and then suddenly it's like 10 years later in development. Oh, sod it, it's never coming now.
Microsoft could revive it now that they own everything. It's not the first time that something like this happened, because I was thinking about Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread was a game that was supposed to be in development, then they scrapped it, and
I
then
thought you were going to mention
they
Duke
kind
Nukem
of
Forever.
no. And then they resurrected it. So it may happen.
I know it can happen. It can. It would be interesting. I mean, probably one of the only survival games that I'm really interested in playing. I actually bought a copy recently. It's an older game, but still never played it. Ancestors, the humankind. Where you start as a monkey.
Yeah.
I still need to play that. So survival games can be a bit different. Yeah, we'll see how Blizzard do it. If they do it differently, have a good story behind it, something to keep you hooked. Yeah, I'm interested. But I'm just going to stay on the cautious side because, well, same as I'll play it because I've been a big fan of Blizzard games for a long time, despite the company. And same as if Valve announces a game, I will play it. But the concern is, the last game they made, Half-Life Alyx, was great. But what was that game they made before Half-Life Alyx, which died in about 10 days?
What was it? The card game?
That's the one. See, nobody even remembers its name now.
I think Artifact.
That's the one.
That's my. Yeah, it just no one remembers it. That says everything, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and I guess we can also briefly discuss. There is a new rumor that Microsoft might have partnered with System Affinity to work on a Monster Hunter type of game. Do you think that there is enough space for more Monster Hunter games?
Yeah,
as
because
long as it's
pretty
not
much
released at the same time, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just Capcom making Monster Hunter anyway. No one, I think a couple of other games tried to tap into that. I don't remember the name. There was another one. I think it got released as a free-to-play game. I don't remember the name.
See, that shows you it was good when you can't remember the name. Same as Artifact.
Yeah, I just have it on the tip of my tongue. I just can't remember the name now.
I mean,
I
one
think...
was Toukiden from Koei Tecmo.
Yeah, well, that was that too. They made 2 entries and they just stopped. They moved from that to the Souls-like. They went with Neo right after that. Yeah, it can be it can make sense. The problem is that you have to contend with Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter Rise just released on Steam 1 year later, and it's super popular right now. Yeah, they would have to do something very different otherwise people are just going to play the original. So I'm going to play Monster Hunter and there's also the fact that a lot of people play Monster Hunter because they play with friends. So you need to create a community around that, and Capcom did that in 20 years more. I don't remember precisely how many years ago. So and let's not forget that Monster Hunter has become really popular with Monster Hunter World. So it's a relatively recent breakthrough in the West, even though the previous one did okay, but not as good as
the
latest.
Monster Hunter World was just a mammoth. I mean, that's the biggest. I think is it not Capcom's biggest selling game ever? Something silly like that.
Far, yeah.
So it's just unprecedented what's happened to them, and I think part of it was aided again. Well, same as a lot of games, it was aided by the fact that it was ready to be released in the pandemic, where people had time to play games. So releasing a game during the lockdowns proved to be a goldmine for a few companies. I mean, Animal Crossing, same.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah, I think Microsoft will, if they can see a gap in their lineup, the whole thing, and it's certainly true. When going back onto last week's topic, when it comes to Game Pass, is they just need to fill gaps. You look at what Netflix are doing, where they're making deals with, they're bringing far more Korean shows and Asian shows onto the platform now, especially after the recent successes with
Squid Game.
that's the one, Murder Show. I mean, I enjoyed that like mad, but I mean, I've been watching things like Battle Royales. I've been watching Asian shows and films for that long, but showing people in the West now that there's a shitload of good stuff over in East, and they can still get them on the cheap. So Microsoft are going to be looking at doing that, filling whatever gaps they can, and do it as cheap as they can at the same time, but while still keeping the quality up. So yeah, I think they'll do it. I think they'll have a monster game. I mean, they've got World's Edge now. Their strategy lineup's going to be getting bigger. It's just all about finding genres that they don't really have, and they'll eventually buy like we said earlier, they'll buy an Asian company just simply so they can have the JRPG side of things. Or they'll just simply pay Square to have Dragon Quest.
I don't think this will happen though. I don't think it has enough appeal in the West yet. To be honest,
it's one of those
it's
things.
It's still too small in the West.
But it's not only the West; they want to break into the East more.
They're never going to do that.
Well, I mean, that is why. That's why they partnered and had Blue Dragon as a exclusive, and they got Lost Odyssey as an exclusive from Square at the time.
Yeah, well, they also back then they were doing a lot of JRPG deals. They got Star Ocean 4. They got Tales of Vesperia before it released on PlayStation, and it still didn't matter. So I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
It's just plugging away. That's why I think they will eventually just have a JRPG developer. They'll have to have one or two.
To be fair, the Xbox Series S, I think at least, has been selling pretty good in Japan, compared to previous Xbox generations at least. So I think, Microsoft is slowly making headway, as Chris said, and especially with cloud gaming now, that's something that works well in Japan, in South Korea, given their infrastructure. And so they can even play on mobile, since they love mobile, but they can play a fully, fledged AAA game. So it's interesting. But yeah.
Well, we'll see. But there's so many things that could happen.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Right. So, what are we all playing then at the moment? I mean, I still can't talk about what I'm playing behind closed doors, but I have been, because I watched Spartacus, I have spent a few hours on Rome Total War Rome 2 again, because it's Rome. I love history. What else have I been doing? Nothing else. Just game I can't talk about and a bit of Total War. How are you getting on with Yakuza?
I have stopped for now. I completed Yakuza Kiwami 2, and then I took a little break. There were other things I wanted to play.
Can't stop at number 2. There's like
dozens
more
you
to
know
go.
what's stopping me is the fact that Yakuza 3 is the oldest game now that I have to play, and I have to find the motivation. I want to continue, but I had other stuff to play that I wanted to play, so I kind of. But I already bought it. I already bought. Maybe it was easier to play it when it released or when the remaster released.
It was my very first Yakuza 3.
The issue is that I started from the very last game, because Lost Judgment was my first one, so it's difficult moving back. Although I didn't have many issues with Yakuza 0 and Kiwami 1. Well, Kiwami 2 is pretty much, it's modern, so no issues there too. But I already bought it. I'm going to go through it. I don't even know how long it is. I don't think it's the longest though. I read that like Yakuza 5 is the longest.
Oh no, it's not the longest, but it's a Yakuza game, so it's long because you've got to have fun around Kamurocho. You've got to play the arcade
that's
games.
the thing.
You've got to do everything because
Mm.
I still say Yakuza is probably one of the best open world-ish games ever made because it's not a massive world, but every square inch is packed full of something to do.
Yeah, it feels very, very alive. That's the great thing. Yeah, so I just put that on hold for now, but I'll get to it. I hope. Well, the next months are going to be packed, so we probably have to wait a bit longer.
Yeah,
There's
well,
Elden Ring coming next month. That's where my time is going. Next month.
Well, I'm
That's
going to
where-
have. What am I? What will I? Well, I know I'll be reviewing Total War Warhammer 3, of course. That's on that comes out on the 17th of Feb. I say I will be. I should be because I'm the Total War guy. What else is there? I don't even know. To be fair, I don't know if I've got much. I'm going to have much on the list because I'm always quite a busy person. I am hoping for. I'm hoping for nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Gran Turismo. But other than that, I'm not. Yeah, I'm relatively happy. I don't even know what else is coming out. I don't know. Is Fantasy World Dizzy coming out yet?
There is the new grid game.
Oh yeah,
If you,
Grid as well.
but it's really close to Gran Turismo 7. That was already a bad call, I think, by Codemasters and EA because can really put this. Yeah.
I'll have Gran Turismo pass Grid onto the somebody else. I tend to be the racing game person as well. That's the problem. It's like nobody else really does racing games apart from me. And when it comes to strategy, I am the baby.
I think Nathan has done some racing games in the past. I don't know if he wants to do that with some, but yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Anyway, Francesco, I think you can discuss the Waylanders because
I can. Chris got me into my Yakuza line of thought, so I got sidetracked. Yeah, we can discuss the Waylanders. I had hoped I could have discussed it in a better light, because I just tried so much to like it, but I just couldn't because it's simply an incomplete game. They needed more time to work on a lot of things. It's a shame because the premise is very interesting and they have and the setting and time traveling let's call them mechanics, even though they're not really mechanics. That you pretty much you meet your companions in the Celtic era and then you meet them in the medieval era because they've been reborn into other people. And that was very interesting, but the game is simply not that fun to play. It has a lot of interface problems. It has horrible controller support. I mean, I wrote in the review, you shouldn't play these games with a controller, but if Larian did it with Divinity Original Sin 2, then made the game is very playable with a controller, then it's probably possible to do that. There are so many things that just feel weird, like the locations are big, there's a great sense of scale, but they're separated, they're smaller and they're separated that you just access them with the map. And then there's another really weird thing is that you just accept quests from your ship, then you take on the quest, you complete it, and as soon as you kill the boss or you find the item, you're sent back to the ship without a cutscene, without anything, and you just have to access back the quest menu on the ship to get the reward. It just feels like it really. It's not just unpolished. I think it needed way more time.
It's just incomplete.
There are so many weird things. I have to say that a lot of the ideas upon which the game is based are good, but the execution is all over the place. Really. It needed a lot more time. It feels like they're just releasing it because they're out of money. That's the feel I got. Because some things are just too glaring to just say this is good enough to release at this point. They're just out of money, I think.
That makes sense. I mean, after all, it was a crowd-funded game, so they really probably don't have enough money
Yeah,
anymore. And
it's a shame because the game had a lot of potential, but it just needs more. Really, it really needs more everything, not just polish. Because there was also some weird bugs like when you have to move from one area to another, you have to align the character precisely in a place so that you can click on the next location to go to. Yeah, that's weird. Or like there's another weird thing with the controller that you open the menu and in every other game you just press a button to come out like the cancel button. In this game, you have to press the menu button again. It just feels intuitive.
Oh, I hate when that. I've played a few games with
Yeah,
that. And it's like,
it's so frustrating. Really, this is what I said. A lot of the time, I just didn't have fun. I didn't have fun because these are small things. If they're easy
Yeah.
to fix, but if you didn't think to do that, there are probably bigger issues than.
How about you then, Alessio? There's still Elder Scrolls Online?
Yeah, as a regular game, yeah, absolutely. We're chipping away at the end game, and I'm also playing another game, but I cannot talk about it. So it will remain mysterious for the time being. Maybe the next podcast, but maybe not even then, as it's still a few weeks off. But I think you both already have guessed which one it is, and maybe we can talk about it.
Minecraft.
In the sequel.
That's what it is.
Yeah, Minecraft. But yeah, that's all for me, and I think it's also time for you to go, Chris, probably. So
Yeah. I say, get ready. Food, family stuff. Always fun. Too busy. Need hibernation time. I'm quite curious what you're playing, but we'll have to talk about it another time. And on that